Gadgets for Family, the tech podcast for the family photographer, if you're at work and you're the team videographer, and the avid selfie enthusiast, and anyone else looking to get more out of their lives through tech. I'm your host, Jay Benjamin.
And I'm your host, Greg Cunningham. I think the team videographer applies to parents too, doesn't it?
Right, right.
How many games, my soccer games, my phone sat on a tripod next to my chair, pointed at the goal to film Wyatt? Yeah.
Right. The same here. I'm at the back fence at the baseball game, just trying to get my camera through the little fence holes just right, so I don't have the it looks like I'm standing on the field. So yeah, this goes for all of you guys. So hopefully everyone listening out there or watching, because YouTube has been getting a little traction, is getting some good use out of those iPhone 15 and 15 Pro Max cameras. I know Greg has. So with any phone, Greg usually sends me, when he goes on walks, runs, bike rides, or something like that, he usually sends me some amazing shots, right, of the landscape out there in Utah. And they always look so beautiful, so serene. I love them. So one of the things that I like to do when he sends these, now that he's on the 15 Pro Max, is try to zoom in to see how far I can go before the picture starts getting blurry. And yeah, I'm never disappointed. It is really good.
Yeah, my sister is a photographer, and she did not get the Pro
Right.
Max. She got the 15 Pro this year, and she's been taking some amazing shots, and I've been sending her some of the same ones that I send you. And she's like, yeah, my camera is not even in the same league as yours.
Right.
So,
Right, right. So 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 even if you have the latest Pixel phone or the iPhone Pro Max or whatever you have, um, eventually you're gonna run out of space, right? These phones are taking some huge ProRes videos, some 4K videos, some awesome pictures and all of that. And with these larger file sizes comes, this issue with running out of space, right? So what I wanted to talk about today is just several options that people can use to basically get these phones, these photos and videos off of their phones, right? So many people they're walking around with months and years of their lives on these devices that are fragile, right? They're built tough, but fragile as in, basically you have the last 3 years of your memories, from parties, birthday parties, trips, things like that, all on this little piece of aluminum or titanium as it is now on the iPhone. And anything can happen to it, right?
yeah, I
So
mean, even more than 3 or 4 years, right? I think I've got pictures still on there from the
yeah,
first iPhone that I have and some that I imported in. So I don't think it's
yep,
uncommon, and y'all tell us if we're wrong, but I don't think it's uncommon for people to have every phone they've ever taken or every photo they've ever taken with a smartphone in their library right now.
right, right. And so we're going to talk about that, but yeah, you're right. And as the years go on, they build more and more and more. And so we're going to talk about backup option, but what about the people that don't have any backups? They're just living on a device, and that's a pretty dangerous way to live. So we're going to cover three options in today's show. And hopefully you at the end of the show you'll be able to decide which option is best for you and select one of these, because yeah, it's a ticking time bomb walking around with all of those memories on your device. And it hopefully it doesn't happen, but one, you know, bike crash or one car wreck or one theft, you know what I mean? So, you walk around, you leave it on the counter, you turn around, and boom, it's gone along with all of those memories. So we're going to talk about those options to get those memories off of your phone. Also, stick around for the post show, and Greg and I we're going to do a deep dive into what we use personally in our homes, and hopefully that'll kind of clarify a lot of the information too that we talk about in the main show. So stick around for that. Before we jump in, don't forget to share this episode with anyone who's ever lost any photos or any videos from their phone. Uh, whether it was a stolen device, they did an update. That's something else I didn't mention too, right? You do an update. Apple's been known to put out some bad updates from time to time, and it just bricks your phone, or you accidentally do a reset or something like that. So share this episode with anyone like that, or anyone you want to prevent that from happening to in the future. So
And and it sounds like we might be trying to alarm people, but we're really not. Because there's a
right,
simple
right,
solution to this that would really take some extreme things for you to lose everything. And we're going to talk about those. So the
yeah,
first thing Jason's going to cover with us is the easiest way to solve this
easy,
problem. And if you're
yeah.
on in the Apple ecosystem, if you don't fiddle with it, you're probably going to be okay.
Right, right. And we're gonna take that approach with today's show. We're gonna go with the real easy one to the medium or moderate kind of level of tech knowledge, and then we'll finish up with one that's more complex, right? One that requires you to be more tech savvy or whatever. So we'll have different levels here. So definitely stick around with us today. Also, too, check out their YouTube channel for anyone that feels they can benefit from, watching the videos instead of listening. We have those out there, and there'll be shorter, split up sections that'll be more easily consumable. So, Greg, before we jump into all of that, let me ask you a question. Now, this has happened to me several times before. So, have you ever taken a picture for someone, you were out, or you were at a party or something, and you got your hands on someone's phone and you took a picture, and they were just so blown away by the picture you took? Has that ever happened to you?
I don't take a lot of pictures of people,
Right.
mostly nature and stuff like that. But I will tell
Right, right.
you,
You're not the
I,
most social person, so.
no, 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 no. And this episode is really not designed for me. This camera is probably wasted on me. In fact, I had to go change a setting so I could get higher quality pictures. But I've
Right.
got an audience that wants to see every picture I take, which is my grandkids.
Yes.
And the other day, one of my grandkids asked me, "Why do you go out and take pictures when the sun comes up and when it goes down?" And you, Jason, have seen some of these
Right.
pictures I've been taking lately. And so then I showed them to her, and she was just over the moon. And so, yeah, I mean, they want to see every time we take a picture of them, they want to see it. So
Yep.
my audience for pictures is easy to please.
Right. Right. The grandkids, you can just take a picture of something colorful and they'll be blown away. So, real quick, I'll tell you, like I said, this happened to me several times before, but I'll tell you about the most recent one. So, we were on a cruise, of course, the big social environment where everyone's forced to get to know each other and speak to each other. Um, we were on the Allure of the Seas, right? It's one of the big Royal Caribbean ships. It was earlier this year in February, and we were one of the things, our traditions that we do, when we're off of the ship in port, we'll take a picture in front of the ship with the ship name on the side, right? It said Allure of the Seas, and we took several pictures or whatever, and there was an older couple standing there, and the guy was like, "Hey, can you take a picture?" Because they were taking selfies, right? And you just can't get the whole ship in the background when you're taking a selfie. I'm like, "Sure, I'll take it." And he hands me, at the time, I believe it was a 13 Pro, or yeah, it was a 13 Pro Max. So he hands it to me. He's like, "Snap the picture." I'm like, "Okay, I'll take several." So of course I take the generic, vacation photo of them, and I quickly switch the phone to photo mode, and I start snapping photos and landscape at different angles and things like that. And I handed him the phone back. I'm like, "Here, check this out. See if you like any of them. I'll take some more for you if you want." And his wife was looking over his shoulder, and he's scrolling through looking at those portraits, and he's like, "What did you do?" Like, I could see the look on his face, and his wife was looking like, "Wow, is that us?" And I'm like, "Yes, your phone is capable of taking some amazing portraits." And yeah, yeah, they were just blown away by him. And that's happened to me, several times before. But that's that's the story. So, we always say, people use the phone for the phone, right? As long as the phone works, it works. They know it has a camera. You open the camera up, it's on photo, and yes, it takes some amazing photos when it's on the regular picture mode. But I mean, cinematic video, those portraits, what else? Panoramic,
Yeah.
those different modes. A lot of people don't take advantage of them, and when you do, you really get some awesome videos and pictures. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe we need to do an episode or a segment at some point. Just not, I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but between the two of us, we could probably explain the different modes and let people get
right,
more out of
right,
it, because the best camera is the one you have with you,
right.
which
So any
is,
picture is good. Yeah,
yeah, which is your phone. 99.9999999% of the time, and the other 0.0001% is when I'm out with my watch, right?
Right.
So it's worth it on any smartphone that you have today. If you don't have a smartphone that's, if you have anything that's 5 years old or less, you've got an amazing camera.
Right.
Find out how to use it.
Right. Right. So yeah, that time, and like we said, it makes us feel good when we show somebody something that they didn't know they were capable of, and they had it the whole time. It that felt pretty good. So let's talk about our tiny tips this week, Greg. Since we're already this episode is heavily focused on photos and videos and pictures and things, I thought I'll stick with that theme and talk about one of the things I love watching. Right, and this is when I'm working on an episode for the show, or doing some kind of other work online for the company or something like that. And that's these 4K HDR city tours that are on YouTube, right? So I hadn't always had a 4K TV. I got this TV. It was late last year, so it's my first 4K TV. It's capable of HDR video and all of that. It looks amazing. So I started watching on YouTube these guys, and basically what they do is just they'll take a 4K camera, HDR camera, even some higher resolution cameras, 8K and things like that, and they just walk around some of these popular tourist destinations, right? Machu Picchu, cities in Japan, Germany. Oh, they look amazing. Some of these cities in Germany and things like that, and they just look amazing on the television. So if you have a 4K TV, or even if you don't, even some of the older 1080p TVs, HD TVs, I'm sure they'll look just as good on those. But so there's not anyone specific that I'm gonna call out or recommend, but just go to YouTube, type in 4K HDR walking tour or something like that, 8K walking tour, and all of these creators will show up. Click on one and just watch those videos. They look amazing.
I'm gonna have to check some of those out. I've not done that, so
Right, right. So Machu Picchu is on our travel list, our travel bucket list, my wife and I. And I've been watching videos of that lately. Not that we're gonna get to Machu Picchu anytime soon, but I mean, man, it looks amazing. I mean, you can see like the dirt on the ground and stuff like that. It looks so amazing. So yeah, check those out. Any place that you want to go that you've been wanting to travel to, see if they have one of these HD walking tours and take a look at it.
I'll have to go check some of those out for Brazil and see
Yeah.
if they have some of the places that I spent time in. So
Right, right. Okay, and then we had one more tip, Greg, you want to talk about?
yeah, shared photo albums. This is what we use this a ton. So this is
Yeah.
a few episodes ago. I told this story about my grandma that's in Colorado when she got her iPhone. I said, "Hey, here I'm going to send you an invitation. Join this set of photos, and you'll be able to see the photos of the grandkids." And she thought it was the best thing ever,
Right.
right? And so there's family
And it
share
is.
photos. It is. It really is. There's family share photos, which is not what I'm talking about. I haven't got into that yet. I have a note. Talk about it a little bit in the post show, but
Hmm.
these are just creating ad hoc shared photo albums. So, like, we have one for each of the grandkids. Every spring-ish, we start a new one that's called Camping Insert Year, right? And then we
Right.
just put a whole bunch of pictures up from all of our camping trips, and it's a good way to collate them. I am not OCD about photos. I don't go in and make sure all the metadata is perfect and any of that
Right.
kind of stuff. It's just not my thing. But we do use these shared albums a ton. We add people to it, and unfortunately, my wife's parents, they don't get added to this stuff because they're on Android. I wish there was a better way to cross platform some of these. So we end up
Yes.
having to. They have a family Facebook group, which I won't touch with the 10-foot pole, but they put some stuff
Right.
up in there,
I
and we'll
stay away
send
from
them individual.
Facebook too.
Yeah, we'll send them individual pictures. But this is one of the best things to be able to do. And there's been a couple years where I've created like a calendar, use one of the online services to create a family calendar that had pictures and stuff. And so if I know I need a
Hmm.
picture of this grandkid, I can go into that album. And we don't have to you don't have to be perfect about doing it, but we do try and share these up, especially some of those camping photos. A lot of times we take the grandkids camping without my daughter, and
Yeah.
so instead of sending her individual pictures, we just create an album and
Yeah.
put
Drop
the pictures
everything
up
in.
there. So that's would be my tip. That is a great thing. If you're not using these ad hoc shared albums, great. And it doesn't move the pictures. They still just sit in your library. It just kind of puts them
Right.
into a folder, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. And we mentioned before too, it doesn't take up space on everybody's phones, right? Like um, when we used to have those family events or whatever, and our family group chat was just full of texts back and forth of everyone sending their pictures and stuff, and we had to get to the point where it's like, no, let's put this in the album, and everybody can see everything, right? They can just pick the ones that they want to save or the ones that they want to share on their social medias and things like that. So, yeah,
and I,
no,
I,
really good tip.
I think that's good. My one piece of advice before Jason leads us through a bunch of this stuff is if you don't know what you're doing with this stuff, just leave Apple's default settings alone.
Right?
Right? You're gonna take pictures and you're not gonna run out of space on your phone because it's gonna automatically move them to the cloud for you. Right? So you're not gonna run out of space if you leave things alone. If you do these shared photo albums, it's not gonna put undue storage on whoever you're sharing these with. Like if you've got grandma or grandpa that has a super small storage phone, right? You don't need to worry about doing that. I mean, I've checked my
Yeah.
grandma's and my mom's phones, and they don't even use half of the storage on the entry level, right? So if you don't know what you're doing with this stuff and just want to enjoy taking pictures, just do it. Just leave the default settings alone. Just leave them alone,
Right.
and you should be okay.
Right. So before we jump in, though, you piqued my curiosity. When you look at your mom's storage, what was was it still photos taking up most of the storage? Was the biggest chunk, or was it music? 'Cause I
No,
pick her for a music lover like you are.
she is, but she would just stream. I mean,
Okay.
she had an Amazon device in her kitchen that she would stream from, and
Right. Right.
but she did in the iPod days. We used to get her a new iPod every couple of years, and she'd rip
Hmm.
all of her CDs and stuff, and she would load those things up. But no, the thing that took up the most space were the games that the grandkids had
The games.
loaded on the phone, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. I figured it would still be video, but I don't know. I just kind of was expecting you to say music.
no, I mean she
So
had all of the optimized storage stuff still on. I didn't let
yes.
her turn any of that off, so it just wasn't a problem.
Okay. Good. Good. All right, folks. So we're going to jump into the main topic here, and again, we're talking about um, backup options, right? Things to back up your photos and videos from your phone, so um, you don't lose anything. You don't lose any of those precious memories. So I'm going to take a lesson that I've learned about myself in episode 20, and I'm not going to jam pack this episode with so many details, right? We're not gonna we're not gonna rush through take it easy the top half and you know what I mean, talk everything through and then rush through the bottom half of the show just to try to get everything in. So we're going to take a simple approach. We're going to do an easy, moderate, and complex approach to these things. So yeah, let's just jump into it. So I would say the easiest thing is going to be your cloud backup. Now, there's the same option that's built into all devices, whether it's Android, iPhone, some other platform that you're using. They all have some version of cloud backup, right? That's just kind of uh, a basic feature, right? A kind of a factory feature now that comes with these devices. But we're gonna focus on iCloud. Like we said from the beginning, Greg and I are both Apple guys. We pay for a bunch of these service monthly and things like that. So we're going to focus on iCloud, but you have some kind of version of this on Android, on um, the other ones. I don't know. I can't think of any other ones right now. So let's jump into it. So iCloud is simple, right? It's built into the phone. It's like that old infomercial, right? You set it and you forget it, right? Once you have it turned on, and basically all it's going to do is whenever you're connected to Wi-Fi, you're charging. It's going to back up all of your camera roll along with other settings too. You know, the good thing about iCloud is that it's not just your photos and videos and pictures that you take, but also other settings and stuff on your phone. It's all stored in Apple's clouds on their servers, somewhere else in the world, not on your device. And the good thing about it is free at the base level, right? You get 5 gigabytes for free. It goes all the way up to 12 terabytes for $60, which is a crazy amount, a crazy amount of
This is per
storage, right?
month, right? 12
Per
terabytes
month.
per month.
$60 a month. So again, 5 gigabytes for free, which is good for most people, most general users. I pay for the next level, which is 199 for a terabyte. So yeah, really affordable plans. And even if you found yourself needing 12 terabytes of storage, $60 is still an affordable plan, right? If you needed that much space,
Yeah,
and you'll
and
see why
you
later.
asked about my mom, right? So
Hmm.
she had gotten to the point where she needed to go from the free up to
Okay,
that next
which
tier.
was yeah,
So
$2 a month. You know,
yeah, and that wasn't a problem. She didn't have a problem paying that, and I was just going in to see, um, wanted to kind of see how much storage that actually accounted to. Um, let's see what it pulls up here. But so she did
hmm.
that. Now this is the one. While I'm looking that up, it's actually 99 cents a month for 50 gigabytes. So
Oh, right, I missed that one.
yeah,
I missed that one. So yeah, I went to the third level then.
99 cents a month for 50 gigabytes, 299 a month for 200 gigabytes. Now, I will tell you that my photo library has every photo I've ever taken from on my phone, as well as all the screenshots and a lot of video and stuff that we do for this podcast. And
Hmm.
I have a 100 gigabyte photo library. Now,
Right,
I know podcasters that have huge, massive
right.
photo libraries. So fine, right? So that's what you can do. But this is the one when I mentioned earlier that if you don't fiddle with Apple's settings, this is going to solve your most of your problem. Because the only
Right.
time, and I don't want to be an alarmist here because this doesn't happen that often, but the only way you would lose access to these photos is if you deleted them for some reason, which it's really hard to do because it tells you multiple times you're about to delete them. And
Right.
two, if you somehow lost access to your iCloud account, to your Apple ID, right? If somehow
Right.
you lost access to that, like luckily I had my mom's password when she passed, right? So I was able to get in and get all of that kind of stuff. But you can, we've talked about this, you can set a legacy person that can get access to all your data, which would include your photos. So this is the option that if you don't fiddle with Apple stuff, you're going to get this. And if you start to run out of storage in the cloud and it says, hey, you're approaching the limit on your storage, do you want to upgrade to the next tier? You
Hmm.
have to decide if you just want to hit that yes and pay 99 cents a month to go to 200 or to go to 50 gigabytes,
Right.
or the $3 to go to 200 gigabytes and say, yes, I'm going to do that every month. Or listen for the other options that you may have if you don't want to pay Apple any
Hmm.
more money. But they need to up the bottom tier on this, right? 5 gigabytes
I
should,
was hoping they did. Yep, I was
yeah.
hoping they did with the
Well,
last one,
and they
the
just
last
raised
update.
prices on all their subscriptions, not on cloud storage, but on all their other subscriptions. Like I get this as part of my Premiere, my Apple Premiere
Hmm.
stuff. They just raised those prices by $5 a month. So this is the default one. So like for my
Right.
mom, she didn't even ask me to upgrade to that. She just got a message that said, "Hey, you're running out of storage space in the cloud. Do you want to upgrade?" And it told her what she needed and why, and she did it and moved on. So
Right.
if you don't fiddle with it, by the way, that's a quote from a movie called McHale's Navy. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No, I
Really good
haven't seen that
movie,
one.
but he's talking about his Harley. He's asking the guy to fix it, and he said, "Well, if you wouldn't fiddle with it, I wouldn't have to fix it." And he said, "Well, if you would fix it, I wouldn't have to fiddle with it." So this is back and forth, right?
Right. Right.
So if you don't fiddle with it, this is what you're going to get, right? So
Yeah.
all of my family members are on this. So
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons with this. So on the pro side, it saves all of the video formats that you create, right? Of course, Apple makes it, it has to work with all of their formats. So it may not sound like this is important, but I'm going to give you some more details on this later. This is going to come up again. So, again, easiest method, make sure everything works and you view it exactly the way it's intended to be viewed. Use this option. Again, set it and forget it. Once you get all of those settings set the way you want them, you tick all of those boxes. And again, you don't have to be tech savvy. This is the most easiest. All you have to do is read, follow the instructions. Like Greg said, a bunch of prompts will pop up. Hey, you're out of space. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? You hadn't backed up your phone in 3 weeks or something. Do you want to add more storage or whatever? As long as you can read those prompts and follow through, you'll be fine. You'll be able to set this up. So again, set it and forget it. You can share this across multiple devices. and with your family as well, right? My wife and kids, we all share the storage. I said we had the 200 gigabytes. We all share between us. Well, I say that, except for my son. I don't want my iCloud storage full of just selfies and pictures of his friends and stuff at school because that eats up space a lot really quick. So, but you have that option. You can share that across, family members. If you have a three device family and, everybody has their phones and mom and dad have their iPads or whatever, you can share storage across all of those. All of those devices will be backed up.
I've got four of my family members. So the two
Hmm.
boys, Dustin, Wyatt, Karen, myself, and my mom's stuff. So five actually, all on the same plan. So
Right.
it's not only backing up all of our photos, but everything else associated with our devices, right? We all have iPads and iPhones, and I, of course, have a Mac. So all of that kind of stuff. I'm on the two
Right.
terabyte storage plan, which is what I get with my big subscription. And we haven't even used half of it.
Right. Right. That is a lot of space. That's why, the 12 terabytes is like it's crazy. It's crazy how much space that is. But
Yeah.
so, and the main pro is it works how it's advertised, right? It just works. It's one of those things that Apple, we used to always say, it just works. It works really good. So until you run out of space, of course, that's a whole nother issue. But again, you get those prompts. You're out of space. Do you want to go to the next level, or do you want to delete some stuff? So follow those prompts, and you can't go wrong with that. So some of the cons I have listed here is that you will run out of space, right? Um, when you're talking about adding more families, like Greg mentioned that they'd use half of their space, but I have to manage my space. We're again on the 200 gigabytes. I still have to manage that space. Now, a good thing, and this is a totally separate thing. I don't want to confuse anyone, but they have a thing called HomeKit Secure Video. So any cameras that you have that records security cameras, it doesn't take up space from your iCloud storage plan. So I have my front door camera, but there's multiple very expensive cameras out there that you can buy. And basically, as long as you're paying for one of these, the premium plans, all of that storage is free. So you can record, a week or so of video, and it won't count towards your space. But um, manage that accordingly. However much space you need, if you're taking a ton of photos or whatever, just get the plan that's right for you,
And I like
and
your next con here,
that'll work.
Jason, because I think this is why
Right.
this is why I mean, if somebody said, "Hey, how do you recommend I do this?" I would just say, "Let Apple deal with it." And this next one is
Right.
why, even though it's a price thing. Go ahead. I want to hear how you
Yeah.
put this.
So cost wise, and you have to remember this, you're paying for convenience as well as the storage. And that's not the most cost effective way to go about things, right? Paying for convenience, like I said, everything we mentioned, set it and forget it. Make sure you have the right things. You'll be prompted whenever you run out of space. Do you want more space? Do you want more? You're paying for all of that convenience. And it's not the most cost effective thing. Like I said, I'm paying the $2 a month, no, the 299 for 200 gigabytes. That's less than a terabyte of storage, and it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. And I go with a different option. I'll tell you why I chose that as a go between. But yeah, so the convenience
Yep.
is
For 99.9% of my clients, this is what they should do. Right? They
right.
should just hey, I'm running out of storage. Well, which tier are you on? Can you afford the next tier? Or do you want to
Yep.
delete stuff? And they say, I don't want to delete anything because I don't know if I want it, which totally understand, especially when it comes to
Right.
photos. Fine, just pay for the next tier.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, and again, we went through the costs here in North America. You get the 50 gigabyte, 2 gigabytes, all the way up to 2 terabytes, 6 terabytes, all the way up to 12 terabytes, and it goes from free basically to the $60, $65 a month, and that's that's pretty steep. But again, if you're paying for 12 terabytes, then you need it.
Yeah.
So the next one then is the local backup. Right. And I would say this is a medium level of tech because a lot of people grew up with thumb drives and flash drives and memory cards and things like that. So basically, what this is creating a local backup of the media somewhere, locally, meaning, not through the internet, not through the cloud or something like that. This is right at home, locally connected to your computer. You have to physically plug something into the computer. So this is going to require you to purchase some additional hardware, right? And we're talking about flash drives, thumb drives, memory card, compact SD cards, those big memory cards that go in like the cameras, the professional cameras and things like that. Um, they also make these with Lightning and USB-C connectors, right? So you can plug these directly into your phone, directly into the iPad, directly into most devices. They make some kind of dongle or something for. So and that's it. And I say that this requires a medium level of knowledge because, again, it's not super complicated. But if you can read through the prompts, follow the instructions, it's going to walk you through saving all of those videos from your phone, from your iPad or whatever, and transferring them to this local storage. So, Greg, what do you think? This is again, I don't think this is super complicated. This is something most people can handle. But do you think this is a good option for some people?
Yeah, I do. I mean, if you don't want to keep everything in the cloud, you don't want to pay that extra stuff, or
Hmm.
and you just want to do like once a year, right?
Right.
Or once every 6 months or something like that to be able to transfer them. There's apps that'll help you do this.
Yes.
Um, so if you're interested in that, let us know. We can point you to some resources. Um, Going directly from your phone to that external hard drive, it just takes just a little bit. I wouldn't want to be doing this
Right.
on a regular basis. It'll be slow for one thing,
Yes.
and especially if you're not on the newer phones in like the Pro Max with the Thunderbolt connection. But um, yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Um, get some help doing
Yeah.
this if you've never done something like this before and you want to move everything off. I think this one going directly um, is probably something that doesn't happen a whole lot because people are just going to pay the
Yes.
the extra storage for Apple unless you have
Right.
a Mac, and I don't think we have that one down here now. If you have a Mac and want to use your Mac to get these
Hmm.
photos out of the cloud, stick around for the post show.
Yeah. Yeah. This requires, again, like I said, buying some extra hardware or whatever. And the most notable of that are these external hard drives, right? They're $10 for 500 gigabytes on Black Friday, right? And Black Friday's coming up. Also, too, we'll have a shopping guide episode coming up soon. We're planning it out, but so deals like I said, a $10 500 gigabyte hard drive, and you can save all of your. That's more storage that I'm paying for, per month with Apple, right? 500 gigabytes, and you can pretty much save multiple devices, multiple years on these devices, on these external drives. And also too, the same with SD cards and stuff like that. A lot of those are really cheap. They're really large now to be so tiny. And one of the pros for that is you control your files, right? You don't have to worry about losing an internet connection and not having access to your stuff. You don't have to worry about being hacked and stuff like that. Although that's really less of a worry with iCloud. You know, uh, as far as things are now, who knows what how things will be in the future. But at least for now, hacking is the least of your problems when storing your stuff with Apple. Um, there's certain scams or whatever, but as long as you don't give anybody your code or your password or something like that, you don't have to worry about it. But having those files stored locally in your home is, just a peace of mind that you're in control of all of those files and stuff like that. So also redundancy is never an issue, right? You can have backups of your backups of your backups of your backups, and never have to worry about if the hard drive fails or something. And that does happen with these cheaper drives. You don't have to worry about something failing or losing something or a software update breaking the hard drive or something like that, because these hard drives are now coming with software pre-installed from the manufacturer that allows you to do cloud sharing and stuff like that. So it's a whole thing. Again, we're not going to go into details about hard drives, but um, just a basic, 300 or 500 gigabyte hard drive. Store all of your photos and stuff on, all of your videos. sounds pretty easy, but it requires some work on your part, and that's why I put this one in the medium section.
Yep, I
So
agree. I mean, I could store all of mine on a on a 256 gig
right,
SD card and clean out my phone entirely if I really wanted
yep,
to do that. So again, this is about backups, right? This is not about direct access to your photos. If you say, "Well, but
yes,
then how will I go to my photo?" Well, you're not deleting it from your phone. You're just backing it up to this device. So,
right,
yeah, I
right.
think
You'll
this is
still have it.
fine. Medium level of complexity. I don't think most people are going to do this one. I think they're either going to
Yeah,
stick with Apple or they're going to geek out.
yep, yep. So some of the cons, those smaller devices, they can add up, right? If you're doing multiple, especially the smaller capacity ones, um, you need 10 of them, right? Which I have a little thing right here. You probably can't see it, it's off camera, but it's full of SD cards and memory cards and things. It's just a little tray, and I have, a ton of them. Pictures are on them, but they're all in a separate location too. But it can be hard to manage those, right? So if you don't want to have a little tray underneath your TV, then I wouldn't go this route either.
The good thing though, they're also if you label them, you can also throw them in a fireproof safe, right?
Right, right.
So anyway,
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that is a good option. So, um, also too, so I mentioned this earlier with backing up to iCloud, and viewing certain file types is really challenging, right? If you're not viewing it on an Apple device. So things like live photos, the way my hard drive handles live photos is that it just breaks everything out, and I'll have 53-second videos in the folder. So it really doesn't handle these these photo file types the way Apple intended. So just be conscious of that. If you're transferring them off of the device, even transferring them back on, it may not function the way you want it to function. So live photos, panoramas don't show up at all. I have the file; they're still there. Um, Certain video types, when you're recording video, it can't transcribe those transcode those videos or whatever. So you'll just have the file, but you won't have a way to view those files. So just keep that in mind. And
yeah, I mean
the last con,
there would
oh,
be
go
other
ahead.
ways to. You could probably get to those with a Mac or something like that, and
Right,
get them
right.
back to where they need to be. It's still better than not having them at all.
Yes, definitely.
Having to work to get to them is better than not having them at all.
Yeah, and when we talk about our options too, I'll talk about how that's improving and stuff too over the last few years. The last con, failure is always an option with these things, right? You're talking, we're talking technology, right? If it's stored in a place with too much moisture, too much heat, which is the enemy of all technology, if they're not stored properly, they fail. Even if they're stored properly, they fail. So you back up some photos on a hard drive. You don't access that hard drive for another year and a half, 2 years, 3 years down the line, and you greet it with the error code that files may be corrupt or something like that. So always just have options. Back up your backups.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
have multiple backups.
if you care about your photos, you
Right.
need to be doing more than just one of these things.
Definitely. That should have been in a tiny tip, right? You need to have more than one of these options. So, but again, medium level requires a little more work on your part. Um, you have to actually initiate these backups yourself. There's some automation and stuff like that, but pretty much you're saying take this picture off of this device, move it to that device. You have to actually be actively, uh, uh, doing the transfers. So, but still, good option out there. So the last one, and by far, this one is the most complex one, I think, and that's creating a personal cloud solution, which there are software and other services to do that outside of Apple. It'll work similar to the way Apple wants it, but it's still from a third party. The software services or a hybrid solution, right? That's some of between actual physical media, hardware and software, and the software that runs on it that will give you these cloud solutions and stuff like that. So again, this is going to be the most complicated.
Jason, before you dive in here, can I just tell you this one is I just see on our video a thumbs up just popped up. That means one of us has the reactions turned on. I think it's you.
Okay. Probably, yeah, probably when I was giving the hand motions here.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, if you're watching the video, you'll see that a bubble thumbs up and a bubble just popped up. Apple has got some animations that if you do double thumbs up and stuff like that, we probably should talk about it at some point. I turned them off on
Right.
my machine. Jason's going to need to turn them off on his. But before you dive in on this one, Jason, this is why I'm in Apple's ecosystem. And way, way, way back in episode one, we talked about having gone from gadgets to tools,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
Jason's going to take you through what this is. This is why I'm in the Apple ecosystem and why
Yes.
I'm all in on the Apple ecosystem is because I don't want to have to do what Jason's about to talk you through, right? Especially if I think
Right.
about the fact that I want to have more of a mobile lifestyle and live in an RV, right? This kind of stuff is just not what I want it to be. I would rather have, and most of the full-time RVers that I have two or three internet services simultaneously,
Right.
right? And so
Make sure they stay connected.
yeah, this is a good option if you want to deal with it. So if you're like me and just say, I just want stuff to work, if you just want it to work, do not try this next option. If you really just want it to work, pay Apple.
Yep.
Sorry, Jason,
So,
I had
and
to go off on that sidebar because
no, no, no.
that's
You're
how I
right.
feel
You're
about
right.
this next one.
You're right. And it is, like I said, by far the most complex. You have to be tech savvy. This is not for the passive user because even I get overwhelmed sometimes with some of these settings. And, they always make that comparison between Apple and Android. Android is for the people who like to tinker with stuff or fiddle with stuff, as you said earlier. And I sometimes I feel like, I just shouldn't have went with this thing. But cost wise, I'm so heavily invested in this thing. I have to keep it running right. Now, I'm not complaining about it because it runs fine when it's running fine. But so let's talk about it. So this is again, we're talking about hybrid solutions, right, between hardware and personal cloud services, right? This is not like iCloud, but your own personal cloud that you build and configure your own way. And so it's basically like a local hard drive that offers some kind of software on it to be able to access that hard drive remotely, right? You don't have to have it connected to a computer or whatever to access it, right? Me, I can get to these files whether I'm sitting here in the home or if I'm, out at a market or something. I can still access all of those files on my personal cloud.
So, Jason, is this basically saying I'm going to do myself what most people pay Apple to do?
Right. This is exactly what it is.
Okay.
And this is why I go with such a low tier with Apple, right? The 200 gigabytes, because all I need is for us not to lose our photos while we're out, right? As long as we can get back to the house, we come back home. As soon as my wife and I put our phones on the charger, all of our photos are stored here on our personal cloud, on our NAS, right? So it's a network attached storage. They just call it a NAS for short, NAS. And, you know, for me, and again, I'm a little more tech savvy. It's simple for me, right? It has its when the power goes out and stuff like that, or the breaker trips or something like that. I have to go in and reconfigure some things and get it going. So for some people, that'll be a nightmare, right? When we use the Plex server here, the stream home videos and stuff here, every now and then my son will go, Dad, the thing is acting weird. It's not letting me, or it's telling me I can't access this video, and I'm like, oh, just watch Netflix. I don't have time to deal with it. So it requires a certain amount of attention, a certain amount of babysitting, but when it works, it really works great. So um, we're always talking about too how to reuse some older tech, right? Greg and I are always going on about being able to reuse some of your older tech. This is a perfect way to repurpose some of your older laptops or something like that, right? You can create, and again, if you're looking to tinker with things a little bit, you can create a home server just from one of these old laptops and actually serve these files just like a NAS, just like a personal cloud, just from that old laptop that you have sitting in a drawer or something like that. So there's software services and things out there that you can either start a trial or just pay for Pay for not a subscription, but just pay for the software one time and set it up and configure it, and you're off to the races.
And just to be clear, I mean, in the previous example, you talked about how um, it's almost as simple as plugging in a hard drive, launching an
Hmm.
app, and pressing a button to get all of your stuff to transfer over to that external hard drive.
Right.
While we're talking about external hard drives in this third scenario, it is not pressing a
No.
button. It may be pressing a button after you've got it all set up.
Right.
But the downside to this one for me, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody that loves to tinker with this stuff. I just have other things I want to do. Is I can either
Yeah.
maintain this for myself and my family, the five of us, or I can pay Apple to do the exact same thing for me and my family that they do for how many hundreds of millions of
Right.
people, right? And so I'm not saying Apple's stuff doesn't ever have problems or crash and you can't get to things, but it is super, super rare. I mean, Jason, I'm
Right.
guessing you have to fiddle with your external storage for this backup stuff way more than you notice Apple's stuff is unavailable,
Way
right?
more.
Because
Way more.
yeah,
But not on
and
a daily or weekly basis.
correct, right? I mean, once you get it up and going, you're probably okay. And if I really wanted to
Yes.
set up, actually, what I would end up doing is putting Jason on FaceTime and making him help me set up all of this stuff for me.
Right.
But
Right.
that's the difference. And I'm just being clear here. Those of you that
Yeah.
want to do this, I'm not going to scare you away, right? Those of you that are thinking, oh, that might sound like fun. Maybe I want to learn how to do this. You need to really think about if that's what you want to do, in my opinion.
Right. 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 So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Again, like I said, right at the top, I have here when it works, it really works, and it works good. It works stable. It'll be fine for 3 months. We'll have a power outage or some kind of storm or blow through, and then I have to go in, restart a lot of those services and all of that and stuff like that. Once it's because I already got it configured initially, I'm just restarting the service and it's working. So when it works really good. Um, I put on here, it can be more cost effective than any of these other options, right? Now, I did mention the $10 Black Friday 500 gigabyte hard drive that we see at Walmart and other places every year. It's not as cost effective as that, but you can get hard drives on Black Friday all through the shopping holiday season on Prime Day, and they had Prime Day twice this year. They have these
It's going to
pre-Christmas
be,
sales.
I just read an article, don't quote me on this, but Amazon and I think Walmart are doing their Black Friday deals over the course of like 11 days this year.
Right. That's yeah. So you'll be able to get these deals pretty good. So when I say that it can be more cost effective than the other options, let me give you an example. Um, my NAS, our personal cloud storage that we have, is 16 terabytes. Right. We talked about Apple's 12 terabytes for $65 a month. I paid one of my hard drives. Now there's four. It's four different bays. One of my hard drives I paid $45 for. So add those up, again, 16 terabytes of total storage, nowhere near even putting a dent in it. All of our Apple stuff, all of our photos through the year. I even scanned some of, we have a scanner here. I go through, when I have time, scan some of the old physical photos that I have, save them to the hard drive. So all of our photos will be there. Then it's backed up to another older hard drive. There was another network attached storage. But again, we're not going to go into details about that until the post show.
Yeah, I mean, you're
But,
talking about a few $100s to set something like this up. Even if I think about,
right?
because a lot of the podcasters you and I follow have Synologies, which is just the type
Yes.
of this NAS stuff. I mean, they may spend a couple $1,000s, but you're gonna
Right.
spend that once a decade,
Yep.
and
Just
maybe
once.
some replacing every few years one of the drives if it starts to go bad or something like that. So this is a
Yep.
one time more expensive to set up if you can get it set up and you want to maintain it, right? So definitely can
Right.
be more cost effective than, I mean, if you were paying $60 a month, so $720 a year, that's $7,200 over the course of a decade to pay
Yes.
for all of that storage versus, Jason, it sounds like you set yours up for 300 or $400. And how old is
Right.
it?
Right. Well, mine is I want to say about 3 years old now, and there's no reason to change. Like I said, 16 terabytes. We hadn't put a dent in it,
Yeah.
like at all. So I'll be on that 16 terabytes until until I need more.
Yep.
And the particular one I have two more expansion slots in it,
Yeah.
so I can add two more solid state hard drives into this one. Now, 5 or 6 years, I'm probably going to want the newer, faster version of the one that I have, but that's just me. I can keep this one for however
As
long
long as it
the hardware
runs,
still support it.
right?
Right,
And
right.
it's physically sitting in one location. It's not moving around. It's not subject to being banged up and dropped on
Yeah,
the floor and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely can be more cost effective than others. And
yeah,
it's a solid solution for those of you that have already said, "Oh yeah, I want to do this. I'm just trying to figure out what to do."
yeah. So let's talk about some of the cons then. Like I said from the start, like Greg gave his PSA from the start, this will require some maintenance and attention on your part, right? A lot. And depending on the brand that you go with, Synology that you mentioned, a lot of those are more user friendly than the QNAP, which I have. So I made that comparison to Apple and Android. Synology and QNAP are kind of the same. I should have went with Synology because basic settings, basic switches, and it runs just fine. I opted for the QNAP, which requires a lot more tinkering, a lot more settings, a lot more information. Um, so it requires more attention. And again, don't let me scare you about the maintenance part. Again, once it's running, right? When the wind blows here, they changed the transformer in my backyard. There's a lot of trees by the power line, so when the wind blows too hard, we blow a transformer, and the whole block is without power for 2 or 3 hours. After the 2 or 3 hours, I have to go in and reconfigure everything. But I know to do that out of habit now, so it requires more attention. Um, you do have to be pretty tech savvy. Again, we mentioned that. This is not something where you can just read through and read the prompts and follow the settings and get it set up like you want. Some of this stuff you have to understand what you're changing, right? And I have years of experience with networking and just technology in general. A lot of this stuff, I read it, it says a certain phrase or a certain term, and I understand what it is that I'm changing. This is not for the faint of heart, as they say. You're not going to go from um, tech zero to hero all of a sudden with the NAS. You're going to have to understand this thing.
And
And
I don't want to key in on too much, but I think that might be the difference, Jason, is
mhm,
I am more consumer tech savvy
right,
versus tech savvy, right? I was
right,
never a network administrator, right? I mean, there's a reason
right.
why I worked off of an iPad is because I just wanted the simplest approach there. And
Simplicity, yeah,
so I've tried to code before. I can't code. My brain doesn't work that
right,
way, right? And so could I learn how to do all of this kind of stuff? Probably. So if you are tech savvy, not just, hey, I have my phone, I know how to use it, I'm good at using my phone, my iPad, blah, 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 blah.
right,
Great. This is still probably not the option for you, unless you want to learn it, right? If this is what you want to learn and you want it to be a hobby or you want it to be your skill set, great. But it's the tech savvy folks. I mean, three of the podcasters that I listen to, all of them are developers and they're all using the Synologies and have all of this
yes,
Plex stuff and these all of this other stuff going and that kind of stuff. And I just don't want to do it. I just want it to work. So
yes,
I'm not trying to be negative. I know it's probably come across that way as we've gone into these more complex solutions. I'm just trying to
yeah,
be the voice of people that say, I just want it to work. This one doesn't just work. You have to make it work, whether it be at the
yeah. You have to
beginning
make it work.
and the maintenance along the way. And then, like Jason just said, sometimes you have to go do research and you have to know what errors mean and you have to be able to
Right,
tell when a drive is failing and, some of that kind of stuff. So, anyway,
right.
I'm not trying to scare anybody off of this. If you want to do this, power to you, right? Learn this kind of stuff, go for it. If I needed this solution, I'd be calling Jason.
Right, right. So you're not sounding negative, but you do kind of sound like you're being a bit of a hater there, Greg. I don't know.
It's just, I just don't need more complexity in my life.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And like I said, even me, I don't want to say regret, But sometimes I wish I should have went with the Synology versus the QNAP. And actually, I've recommended this to my brother and a friend of mine. I said go with Synology. I did
Yeah.
not send him the QNAP route.
But I think that that fits in with what we're just talking about, right? Yes, you want this solution, but you want the simplest version of this solution
Right.
that you can get, right?
Yeah.
But back when you signed up for this, you were probably still doing some of your network admin stuff, so it
Yeah.
probably wasn't that big of a deal. But now that you're in, you're running a popcorn business. It doesn't really align with managing your home network,
Right,
right?
right. It doesn't, and
So,
I don't have the time. Like I said, with my son, and he's like, "Hey, the Plex server's not working. Just watch Disney
yeah.
Plus or something like that." Like, it's
I mean,
just not gonna work, son.
this is why I have Eero, right? I don't
Yes,
have fancy other stuff. It's why I have Apple stuff and all of those kinds of things. This is not the part of my life that I want to spend time troubleshooting. There's plenty of
yes,
other parts of my life in trouble. So,
yeah, right. I understand that. So, and my last con was, I believe we mentioned it a few times before. Yes, these drives do fail, right? There's all sorts of warnings. There's at least with my NAS, and again, this is another thing that just proves how complicated this thing is. It actually sends me health reports, things like that. If a drive is feeling like it's going to fail, the temperature's running too hot, it's not spinning as fast. I get all of those details in a notification, but drives do fail, right? Heat being stored wrong, too many power outages, anything can cause these drives to fail. When they do fail, yes, mine is great enough to where I can just plug in a new hard drive and it merges all of that those files and stuff over, so I won't lose anything. But um, if yours doesn't have that option, back up your backups, like we said. Have your backups in multiple locations. So it's a good idea to use multiple services, right? Use your cloud services, pay for your Apple Cloud services if you can afford it, and still have these local backups and things like that.
I mean, my wrap up here is the folks that are most tech savvy are probably doing a combination of all three of these.
Yes, I think so too. I think so. The more advanced, I know my brother is one of my brothers is the other brother. I think I pushed him towards backing up in a Synology, and yeah, a few people that I know that use just local storage. They'll just save it on the storage, so they're using multiple.
Yep.
So that's pretty much all I had this week for that. Greg, you want to talk about what's coming up next week?
Yeah, so Jason might have noticed I keep trying to glance out my window
Yeah, I
because
thought you were coughing, but you were
no,
looking at
I'm
something,
not. Because I've got to have to pull the curtain, otherwise I get this glare. But I'm watching for the UPS truck.
right?
Now I got the app up and I'm watching, and it says delivery's not till between 1 and 3 today. But you know
Sometimes those are
me,
way off.
yeah, I want to make
Yeah.
sure it'll probably be closer to 3 is the reality. But so next
So what
week,
do you have coming?
next week I'm
What is
excited
the
to talk
UPS man
about that.
bringing?
I have a new MacBook finally coming,
Right,
right? We talked about this last week. We talked about which one Jason thought I should buy, which one I thought I should buy, and I bought neither. Um,
right.
so I've got a new MacBook coming, but so I'm gonna do some. I'll do an unboxing video like I did for my phone, and some of those kinds of things
Yeah,
uh, that can drop on YouTube. But I'm also going to write an article, so I'll have a blog post that drops next week, and then this episode. I want to talk about why I bought what I bought. Right, this journey that I've gone through because I honestly I don't want a Mac, and it's not because I
hmm,
don't like the Mac. I actually need it. Stick around for the post show to talk about this backup thing. I'll explain why I need the Mac, but I don't really want to be working off a Mac, but I need it for certain things. So I've gone through this journey about what do I really need, how much do I really need to spend, how am I using the Mac, what else, all of this kind of stuff. It's part of it's backup related, some of this other stuff. So I've
yeah,
gone through this whole journey, and what I'd like to do next week is just talk through what I ended up doing, because where I ended up is not where most of the folks that do tech podcasts and YouTube work are going to end up on this MacBook.
yeah.
So that journey that I went through, if I can share that with everybody, I think there's people that could benefit if they're thinking about buying a new Mac. So if you are thinking about buying one of these new Macs that just dropped, today is release day, and you can wait another week, do so until you hear the podcast, because I'm going to talk about how I figured out which one I needed to buy. And I saved money. And that's kind
Yes.
of a big deal. So, anyway, stick around for that. That's what we'll plan on going through next week. So,
Right.
unless I get the Mac and set it up and it fails terribly, which shouldn't happen.
It won't.
So,
Yeah, it's gonna be
if
awesome.
that happens, we'll have a very different kind of show next week. It'll still be Mac related, but I might be wearing red. My face might be red. The office may be in shambles because I think I'll be super frustrated. That's not going to happen. So that's
Right,
next
right.
week.
We'll see parts
Yeah,
parts of the computer all dug into the wall and things behind you.
yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's all I had. So again, this is about backing up and saving those memories and those good times that you have, and not living with all of these important, valuable pictures on your device. Right. All it takes is one good spill, and the screen smashes to the point where it's not accessible, and you can't do a backup at that point, and you lose everything. So again, it's not a scare tactic. This is just our opinion on what you should be doing with your technology and things like that. So, again, easy cloud backup, moderate level, just saving it to hard drives and flash drives and things around the house. It just becomes, a little cumbersome managing all of the different, media laying around. And then the most complicated one would be a NAS service or, some cloud service other than Apple's cloud service. But whichever one you choose, or a combination of both, that'll make sure that you don't lose any of your precious memories or trips and
Jason,
things like that.
Can I give a final tip then before we?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. And
So I
and our
think,
and our podcast closing this week too.
yeah, I think my final tip would be is if you're worried about are my photos being backed up on your iPhone, go into settings, tap on your name, go
Right.
down to iCloud, and just make sure Photos is on. And if Photos is turned on, then your photos are being backed up to the cloud.
Yep.
So no
Yep.
need to have too much of a panic there if that's the case. So that would be my final tip. And my final podcast closing is I have no idea.
I'll see you on the new MacBook next week, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye. All right, folks. Thank you for sticking around. If you've made it this long, and you really want to hear how Greg and I manage our photos at home, then that means you're extra geeky just like us. So thank you for sticking around. So we're gonna just dive right into this thing, and let's talk about the solutions that work best for us, right? And why we use them, and what are some of the pros and cons that we run into with our method. So, Greg, you want to start us off? Let's talk about what you use at home,
Yeah, and
which you talked about during the main show
I
a couple
think
of times,
I
but
think we hinted at this, right? So there are a couple of pieces that I didn't do it, but Jason and I are on the opposite ends of this. So I want the simplest, and I let Apple do it for me. So
yes,
the good news is, over time, I'll go from 5 people on my account to 4 to 3 to 2,
right,
hopefully, as my boys get, married and do all that kind of stuff. And my mom's stuff, eventually, I'll just move it off, right? And not have to worry about it. But it's so small, it's not a big deal. So
right,
I don't anticipate having to go up from this 2 terabyte anytime soon, because a lot of the stuff that I do that takes up a lot of space, like our videos and stuff, I delete off because I've got them elsewhere. I don't need them in my photo
yes,
library. I only need them there to do some stuff with them. So
right,
I let Apple do it for me. Like I said, I've got the Premier subscription. It comes with 2 terabytes of storage. I could add an additional 2 terabytes of storage on top of that for an additional $10 a month, or I could add the 200 gigabytes or whatever. So I think it's going to be a long time before I run out of Apple's storage stuff. And that
yeah,
applies for Karen. I was actually thinking about this with her. It applies for her, Dustin, and Wyatt, since we're all on here. But I also think my daughter that has an iPhone does it this way. My mom, my grandma. We just let
hmm,
Apple deal with this. Now, one of the reasons I can do that is because I have what's probably in your middle tier, right? Because I have a Mac, on my phone, I don't download all the full resolution photos to my phone. I let the phone manage my storage for me when it comes to photos. So I've only got
yes,
like 5 or 6 gigabytes worth of 105 on my phone right now, even though I have half the space available. It just, that's what it
hmm,
puts on there. I just let it deal with that. because the full resolution versions are sitting in Apple's cloud. That's how I know I have a 106 gigabyte library, right? If I go in right
Yes.
now into my storage and look at my personal storage, um, it's going to tell me that, my photos are 106.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in the cloud it says 87. Here on my local drive it says 105. So fine, whatever, right? The
Okay.
difference between those, um, that's fine. On my Mac, I'm downloading the full resolution photos. That's the difference. Is I go into Photos, I flip that switch, it says download the full res, and that's how I
Mm-hmm.
know that my photo library is currently taking up 106
Right.
gigabytes worth of photos. And then I use Time Machine. So again, I'm letting Apple's built-in stuff do its job. So twice a week, usually, I plug in an external hard drive into my computer. I don't even have it hooked to my network to tell you how simple I have this. Twice a
Yeah.
week, I plug in that external hard drive. It goes through and does a backup. When it's done, I eject the hard drive and I'm done. And everything is backed up on my Mac there, right? I mean, that
Right.
includes some of the other iCloud stuff that sits on here. So essentially, I've got a local backup and I've got a cloud backup of all this stuff. And then I also currently, you and I will talk about this next week. So again, tune in next week to talk about this. I also
Mm-hmm.
currently use Backblaze, which is backing up my entire Mac to a separate cloud service. So in theory,
Yeah.
I've got two cloud backups and a local backup of everything that's on my Mac, which happens to include my entire photo library. So that's how
Right.
I do this. Um, that's
So in
just
Backblaze is just kind of a backup option to the Time Machine, right? Because everything is backed up to the hard drive through the external hard drive through Time Machine.
right. Yeah, I mean the way, so if you listen to like ATP or something like that, right? They always recommend that you have one cloud backup of everything and one
Right.
local backup. The local backup is in case like, your home were to burn down, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I switched to a new external hard drive this year. My old one, so since everything up through July on my Macs is on that old hard drive is in the fireproof safe. So even if I were to lose this current hard drive, I'm only back, six
Yeah.
months or so if I had to. So that's what it's for. But you and I are going to talk about whether I need Backblaze next week or not because I don't know. And
Yeah.
it all depends on your usage, right? So that's how I do it. Like I said, so I let Apple do everything. I've got 2 terabytes of storage, which I'm not even close for. It's all of my family stuff. Then I have the full res versions pulled down to my Mac, and that gets backed up using Time Machine and Backblaze.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, I've got locals and cloud backups of everything. Now, the other new option that's come out, so let's say that I didn't want to go, manually pull Karen's photos
Mm-hmm.
down and have a local backup of those here, is I could use the new family photo share stuff, right? If she and
Right.
I were to share an album and we put all of her pictures in that, then they would get downloaded to my hard drive here and then backed up to Time Machine and all that kind of stuff. I think the
Mm-hmm.
problem though that I have there is I probably would need a different hard drive size because I think she's
Right.
got enough. Um, she has enough photos. If I just look at like our overall usage, Dustin's actually worse. He's using 303 gigs of storage, and the vast majority of this is photos, right? I mean, they're not
Right.
storing files or anything like that. Dustin might be, but so Karen's at 165 gigabytes, and my guess is 120, 140 of that is probably photos. So
Mm-hmm.
if I were to put another 140 gigabytes worth of photos on my hard drive here,
Yeah.
I'd be out of
You're gonna
space.
need some more. Yeah. You're
So,
gonna definitely need more storage.
but I'm pretty comfortable that I'm comfortable that between Apple's cloud and her having the stuff on her phone, that we're probably okay. The only
Mm-hmm.
scenario that didn't account for is if her Apple ID were to get hacked and she were to lose access to that, and somebody got
Mm-hmm.
in and purged everything or tried to hold it ransom or, you know, something like that. That's the
Right.
only scenario. But unless you're high profile, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's just such a low risk. And it's surprising that my emergency preparedness brain is not trying to mitigate for every possible scenario, right? Because
Yeah.
me, I normally do that, but in this case, I just that's good enough for us. So
Yeah,
That's
and
what we
it
do.
is a good solution. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is a really good solution for most people, right? So for me, I went with this solution again. One was the cost because I'm cheap. Two, I like to tinker and stuff like that, right? I try to keep my home network running as smoothly as possible, and adding a network attached storage is just one of them. So I went with this not just for the photo backup, right? I know the show is about photo backup and videos and stuff like that, but it's more than that. The photo backup is just one aspect of why I went with this drive, right? So it's a personal cloud, so I can't access all of my photos and stuff like that in a separate app, right? The app is called Qmagi. I think it's supposed to be like Magic Q Magic or whatever. So Qmagi, and man, over the past couple of years, they are really trying to rip off iCloud, which is great, right? Now they have the facial recognition things, and they have these smart folders and stuff like that. It recognizes animals, and just like Apple, just like the iCloud photo or iPhoto system. So they're really making an effort to copy the Apple, so to make it more attractive to Apple users and stuff. But I mean, again, I have our media server running from it. The business stuff, just like you, I don't save a lot of videos and media and stuff that we make for the company on the devices. Right, we have the knobs for that. Uh, I can actually serve a web page if I wanted to get in there and code. Right, I won't have to pay for a service for somebody to serve the web page and stuff for us. So it has so many other uses than just photo management, which is why I went with that. But um, I do get really good uses out of it. So I use a QNAP NAS, which is a personal storage, right? Personal cloud storage, as well as local hardware storage. So just like you open a laptop, you connect to my home network, you open a laptop up, and you have your local hard drive. The QNAP NAS, it just shows up as another hard drive on every device, on my iPad, on the phones, on every TV, on every computer. It just shows up, right? So it's basically storage for the house. There's certain files and stuff that everyone doesn't have access to, and like from the guest network and stuff, you don't see any of that. But if you're on the home network, you have access to these, and yeah, it just works out perfectly. Like I said, we connect our phone to the charger because we don't want it backing up continuously all the time. But uh, and that's a setting that you can toggle, right? You put your phone on the charger, it automatically backs up your whole camera roll to for my wife and my phone. And when it works, it works. Like I said, it only goes down. I only have any major issues with it whenever there's a power outage, um, or not necessarily the outage, but you know how the power flicker, right? You get that
Especially in Houston,
yep, especially in Houston when the wind blows too hard or there's a storm or something that blows through
or
for
somebody
five
breathes
minutes.
on the power lines.
Right. Somebody's outside and waving a fan around or something. But yeah, other than that, it really works good, and I love it. And again, I'm cheap, so from a cost standpoint, it was a no brainer for me.
So
A few
yeah,
$100 for all of this, and yeah, it's really good.
I added one more thing for us to talk about here. So I
Hmm.
mean, knowing you, you're not cheap. You like to make sure that you're spending money
Right,
appropriately.
right. I'm spending
So
consciously.
Synology's
Yep.
Synology's probably what, double the cost of the QNAP, depending on what hard drives you decide to put in it. I mean,
Depending on, yeah.
if you put their hard drives in, which I've heard they're really pushing you to do, and they pop up all kinds of stuff telling you this won't work as well if you're not using our hard drive, blah 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 blah, right?
Right.
So I mean, let's assume it's 2x the cost,
Hmm.
and you were doing this again. Are you gonna stick with the QNAP, or are you gonna go with the Synology?
No, I think next time around I will go with the Synology. I will go. So a lot of them, they have the same features, right? So it'll run exactly the same for what I use it. Now, again, I say I can create a web server and things like that, and all of these security things. It can manage the home network cameras and stuff like that. Well, all the cameras are automatically saved, but all of that's built into the camera system already,
Right.
right? I have a hard drive and stuff, so I don't need to offload any of that to the hard drive. So there's a lot of features that I said, oh, I may be able to use that one day, and never got around to using it, never got around to configuring it. So, yep, next time around, I will go with Synology.
And so for me, we're going to sell and move and do some of that kind of stuff and hopefully move
Hmm.
into an RV. I think my only thing that I would like is for my external drive to be connected to the network so
Right.
that I don't necessarily need hourly time machine backups because, as you'll see next week when we talk about this, already most of my stuff is going to the cloud anyway, right?
Hmm.
But um, where I could go in and because right now I just leave my time machine settings alone because it only can back up right when it's connected to a drive. So,
Right.
I get one or two backups a week. And so that's probably what I would change is I would want, and the Eros that I have don't have USB-C
Right.
ports. So I can't do
So,
that.
yeah. So that was something that we skipped. I kind of saved time was going into the routers that have it, and that was going to be my question: was does the Euros have where you can connect a hard drive to them? They don't.
Not this one. I don't know if that new one that I sent you, that 7. And I don't even have
Yes.
my main hub is not even a 6. I think my main
Okay.
hub is the previous generation. So I'm like 2
Right.
gens back. I've only got one of the extenders and it's sitting right here and it's got a single USB, but it's PD. It's only power, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
so yeah, I don't have a way to do that. I mean, I guess I could get a switch probably that would do something like that, but
Yeah.
when I when we move, right, I'm probably still going to go with Eero because it's just so darn easy to
Yeah.
manage. As much as I don't like Amazon having that, because that's the other thing I thought of. Should I like my son asked me how to move all of his photos to Google Photos, right? Because
Hmm.
he's got some Google stuff that he does too, and I don't want all my photos in Google
Right.
either. And so I really think the setup that I have right now with the change of adding the ability to plug in an external hard drive to my router, right?
Yep.
And calling that good. And if I'm in a RV, then if we change camps once a month or whatever, we're traveling or stuff like that, I'm going to put all that equipment away anyway, right? I'm going to
Right.
turn it off. It's not going to be sitting there and active when I'm going down the street. And so that would be the prompt for me to maybe have two hard drives. And every once in a while I just swap one over and stick one in a safe, right?
Yep.
So that I have something secured like that. Because RVs are just not quite the same as your house, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
things that can happen in an RV that couldn't, but that's the only thing I would change. I think I have no plans to go any further than that. I would just get a big terabyte um, external drive, plug it
Yep.
in, let it back up twice a week to the network, through the network, and call it good.
So there's different levels of NOSes, right? There's some that are super simplistic, right? We're talking a hard drive with smarts on it, right? So you can kind of have the best of both worlds, right? You don't need web servers and security and things like that on your hard drive. So actually the one that I used before I upgraded to the QNAP was a Western Digital. They called it a MyBook Live, right? It was an external hard drive. It just happened to connect to your network, so it was a NAS, a network attached storage, and it was really user friendly, really simplistic, right? You create a username and password, transfer your stuff just like, but it would show up as a drive, just like a regular NAS as an extra drive, and you can do time machine backups and stuff
Yeah,
automated automatically. So I'll send you a link to one of those. That Western Digital drive, I would recommend it. It's still my backup for my backup now, right? I cleared all of the videos and stuff off. It's 2 terabytes. Um, and I use it as a backup for certain files on the NAS. So the Western Digital MyBook Live is really a simplistic NAS that doesn't have all of those extra bells and whistles, and it works.
yeah,
And that thing is, I've had it for, I think it's 8 or 9 years old. It gives the warnings too if it's overheating because I have it in the cabinet with the other NAS, and it's blowing that fan, that blowing that heat on it, and it sends me a notification like, "Hey, it's too hot. It is too
yeah.
hot in here."
Send it over to me because we'll talk about this a little bit next week about about how I'm going to manage some stuff. So send it
Okay.
over. I'll stick that on my list
Yeah.
because, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's a really great one. So, all right. So, but that was all I had. So, again, I wanted to leave out a lot of the details and stuff, but guys, just know we will answer questions. If you shoot us an email, shoot us a message, YouTube comments, anything, we'll answer those questions back. So if there's anything I left out that you wanted to hear about, we'll include it in like a follow up for next week or something, and we'll answer all of those questions. So give us any feedback if you wanted more information about a certain product, a video that we talked about, anything. Just ask questions and we'll answer.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was it. Greg, you have anything else?
I don't. Join us next week. I think that'll be a really interesting episode. So,
I think so too. I think I wanted to go into it before we recorded this show. I think it's going to be an interesting one. So, but I want to wait till you get it in hand and spend a few hours with it so we can really get the full Greg experience. So, look forward
yeah,
to that next week.
I'll be scrambling to get our show edited before it shows up because I think it's going to be really hard once it gets here to focus on anything else.
Right. Right. All right. Well, let's try to make it as short as possible then, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.